Hey everyone, welcome to Time for Anything. I'm Derek,
I'm James.
And I'm Phil.
and today we're going to talk about Vikings.
Not as horny as we once thought. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
Good way to start.
We will get into that in a second.
Yeah, I think Vikings are pretty cool. We kind of started it off we were talking about it, your mom was here, just helping out getting ready for Christmas. Wow, this goes back to before Christmas.
Oh yeah, that's right. That you guys were having thoughts on this.
Yeah, James and I were just kind of talking about it. There isn't a lot of history on Vikings, and I think that's just good to get across right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be times where we're just not going to have as much information on it as we would like, but at the end of the day, we work with what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we could kick it off like that. I think that's a good little precursor. So, James, tell us a little bit about the history of Vikings. Let's just start off as a general synopsis.
Well, I think as most people know, the Vikings are Scandinavian people. The Viking Age started in the 8th century, and that's sort of when these people living in the Northern Europe area decided, let's go out and raid some people, trade with some people, settle new lands. They, I guess, for getting a little bit of cabin fever on their cold islands up north.
Mm-hmm.
Like Derek had mentioned, there's not really a lot of record written about them.
Which is really weird, right?
Yeah, most of it comes from after the Viking Age.
Yeah, why weren't they keeping better records?
It's mostly attributed to the fact that they didn't have a written language. They had runes, but they didn't have Latin script. Latin script was introduced to them when Christianity was introduced to them.
That's right. I remember you mentioned that to me.
Yeah, the later period of the Viking Age, and after the Viking Age, and at that point, it was mostly Christians who wanted to write off the Vikings as these pagan savages, but in reality, I mean, they were an entire culture of people.
Right, they weren't just like crazy mongrels who were just bloodlust, insane, just killing everything. I mean, I'm sure they killed a lot of people, but yeah.
Well, they definitely did.
They definitely did. But I would like to imagine them as more tranquil, regal people in a way where I'd like to imagine their architecture and their culture being a lot more what's the word? Angelic, in a way, not really angelic, but yeah, sophisticated and very ornate looking and very
yeah. I mean, if you've ever seen a Viking house,
and their ships are magnificent.
Yeah. The way that Vikings built their houses was really interesting. The roof would pretty much come down to the ground.
I don't think I've ever really seen one.
No,
I don't think I've ever really looked one out.
So it'd be kind of sloped, almost like a half a sphere sort of thing.
Yeah,
okay.
It almost touches the ground here. It's real low.
It reminds me a lot of some of the houses in Skyrim, which I'm sure a lot of Skyrim's art style was based on Viking and Norse, northern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They would also build into the land. In this picture,
you can see
there's
that
this little hill
in the ground. Yeah.
And they built directly into it instead of shaping the land around the house and flattening the earth.
Right.
Probably makes sense for temperature control.
Yeah.
That and it also might be easier because you just dig out a section and then build your house in that section, kind of within
sort of
this
Minecraft.
hill rather than
all the time.
Yeah. Right. Rather instead of just I'll clear this entire hill. They didn't have the machinery to do that. So they had to just do everything by hand with tools, which is crazy.
Yeah.
A bunch of people pickaxing and shoveling for just days and weeks to just clear out a spot for a house.
And they were blacksmiths, so they had a lot of tools.
Yes.
I think that was one of their main trades, along with farming and animal husbandry. But yeah, I mean, they weren't really. They didn't have many scholars researching theology and language or anything. That they were pretty simple in terms of.
But they may have had theology and philosophy, but it was never written down.
It wasn't written down, and so again, not a lot is known. But in terms of Viking religion, I mean, we don't know their practices. We don't know really like truly what they believed. We have hints of things, and we have whatever the Christians wrote down.
Yeah, and a lot of it's
Centuries
translated
later.
from like into Latin. So
Right.
names like Odin, like
Oh, I see your point.
could be pronounced completely different. I think, and that's another reason why we decided to do this is because there's such a mysticism
Right.
and a romantic aspect to Vikings.
Yeah.
When, to your point, you're saying, you know, I imagine them more sophisticated when the general spin is that they're like barbarian sort
Right.
of raiders.
Right.
I think it's kind of right in the middle.
Yeah,
I hate
a
to
little
be
bit.
a fence sitter.
But no, I definitely.
I'll set the fence and I'll sit on it.
But no, I definitely agree. It has to be like somewhere in between.
Yeah,
I would like
it's
to
a
think.
little more complex than history spins it because, well, I mean, you're gonna summarize hundreds of years of development in a couple pages, couple articles here, there, and the other thing.
Yeah.
So it never really does it full justice, and there is, at least in the case of Vikings, a lot of lost history.
Right.
That,
And I think that how Hollywood and the video game industry spins Vikings has really set a precedent for what people think of
yeah,
when they think Vikings.
Yes. Especially because of now the show Vikings
Oh,
that has been out for like a couple years, which is just essentially harping on all the Viking stereotypes. So now you're just ingraining it even more into society and people thinking that that's how it was.
I've seen a few Viking shows. There's one on Netflix. It's actually kind of good.
What's it called?
Yeah.
Trying to find out.
hmm
Is it Vikings?
No, I don't.
Because I know
Norseman. It's
Norseman. Okay, I know there is a show called Vikings though.
Norseman's a comedy.
Oh,
Yeah, it's.
but again, it's harping on those stereotypes. Probably, maybe I don't know.
To a degree. I mean, it's not a historical show by any means. And I
Right.
think it's actually made by Scandinavian. Scandinavian
that's
TV shows.
Actually, really cool then.
So, the actors in it are Scandinavian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at these names. I can't even pronounce them.
Oh
honestly.
my gosh! Look at the
Starring.
Saige Torp or whatever that even is. Nils Jorgen. Oh geez, I'm not even gonna try that. That's like
Yeah.
insane. Those names are so cool.
So it's Scandinavian, and it's actually
Wow, the
apparently
lettering is gonna
set right at the beginning of the Viking Age.
Wow.
Is when that show is set.
be
Mhm.
interesting.
There's another good show. It's an anime. It's called Finland Saga, and the creator of that show in particular really tried his best to keep history like
Intact.
yeah, intact.
Based on our understanding at least.
Yeah, they're. I mean, it's a historical fiction, you know.
Yeah, in a way.
In a lot of ways, there are events, there are even people that were real people, but the actual events that occur aren't necessarily true.
Exactly.
Sometimes
Like the whole
not
King
true at
Arthur
all.
thing. Like that gets spun like so many different ways.
Yeah, and there's some debate as to whether King Arthur was
Yeah.
even real or
Right.
more of a metaphor.
Sort of like never mind.
What?
Never mind. I was gonna say Jesus, but we won't get into that.
No, I
Yeah.
don't go there right now. One thing I do want to talk about is helmet horns. And there's like another thing we can kind of mention here in a second. But so apparently the whole Viking horned helmet thing originally came from the 1870s from a costume designer. I don't even know. Carl Emil Doppler, I think is his name, but I'm not entirely sure. And it was originally for a play. Here I go. I'm going to butcher this. Der Ring des Nibelungen is how I think it's pronounced, but that's my horrible pronunciation of that. So it was an opera, and some
pretty
dude
good.
was like, yeah, we'll put horns on the helmets for aesthetic purposes. And then that set a trend, and now everyone thinks that Vikings actually had horns on their helmets, but there's not even anything that says that that's true.
I would
as far
say
as
that-
I'm concerned.
More people now than ever probably know that that's not true.
Right.
In the 1870s, when that was happening,
Like, you
Yeah,
can't fact
but
check that. Like,
for
you don't
sure
have
they,
all
they
the...
were like, "Oh, Vikings had horns."
Right.
You are definitely touching on something that's pretty interesting. The influence of media. when it comes to history,
Yeah, that's a big thing.
I think, and I'm totally guilty of this. Like, I'll do this any day. Like, you want to learn about something, maybe you don't want to read about it, maybe you just need some knowledge real quick. What do?
Like go to YouTube, maybe.
You go to YouTube. You go and watch a video, and you find videos that maybe are short, maybe don't do the information justice, or I guess what I'm kind of getting to is like media production can take something and really like spin it to the point where it's almost not even historically accurate, but people enjoy that version because it's all a narrative.
Because it's more entertaining.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all a narrative at the end of the day, so you spice it up. I mean, it's the same thing now, just like even more dramatized and interesting. So naturally, people are going to like that.
Speaking of narratives and misinformation, yeah, that whole like Vespucci, Columbus kind of thing. As far as we're concerned, it was the Vikings who discovered the Americas first, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like that whole thing is a lie. Potentially. I mean, at least we think that they discovered America first. But
and by America, we mean more like Canada area.
Yeah,
North America.
Northern,
Yeah, in the case of the Vikings, that's where.
Yeah, like I'm sure they weren't like hopping down to Florida. Maybe maybe eventually, but probably not at first. Because like you're up here in the north, anyways. You just go a direction and then you hit Canada.
From what I understand about that is it was one dude who took a small clan and went to America, and it was North America, Canada region. I think like Halifax.
Okay.
That kind of area, and that's where they were. And then they were there for a little bit. They didn't actually settle anything, and they left.
Interesting.
That's from what I understand.
How far of a boat ride is that? Do you think?
From Iceland to
Canada.
I've
never really. Thought about that.
On a long ship, on a Viking long ship, I have no clue. I don't know what the travel speed is.
Yeah, I don't even know how many knots those things go.
Yeah.
But they were supposedly incredibly fast, and we'll get into their ship making later.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. But James, you were just talking about clanship.
Yeah, clanship. That's sort of the whole thing with Vikings, right? Is there were these clans of people. It wasn't until late 8th century that Norway, specifically Norway, was unified. Before that, it was just different clans in power struggles. Essentially warlords leading villages.
And I'm sure a lot of that war was because of agriculture.
It was because of land.
Yeah.
Land.
Territory expansion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just in general, having, well,
Yeah,
it always has been a battle of scarcity.
Yes.
And that's
kind of. It's been a battle of scarcity ever since agriculture, I'd say.
Yeah, so that's pretty much.
But I don't know. I don't have
That's
all
how
the
the
facts.
story goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was probably different at first, but I guess it's interesting to me that the Vikings were able to do all this kind of stuff during the Dark Ages, where power was very localized, and that was very much the case with them too. I think is like what you're getting to with clanship.
Yeah.
And like I said, late 8th century was the first king of Norway. And even then...
Is that Harold Fairhair?
Harold Fairhair. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. He probably had really nice hair, so they called him... It's Harold. Harold who? Well, the guy with the nice hair. Harold Fairhair.
By nice hair, we mean probably not that
probably
nice.
Probably not nice by today's standards.
But
but I don't know, maybe it could have been like very braided with ornate things. And
yeah, I'm sure. So that was late 8th century.
Then again, I'm harping on stereotypes. Sorry. Anyway.
Sure. And some of the clans really didn't want to live under this unified king's rule. So some of them decided to leave. And
like, yeah, we're just clans. We're doing our thing.
Yeah. And although there are countless causes of the Viking Age, historians believe that this is a likely cause. One of the likely causes is that minor clans would rather go and raid and settle new lands than live under one federal king.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I think they always had a strong sense of your local community as opposed to the idea of a centralized power or
Right.
an overriding power. Of course, they did have a hierarchy
Mm-hmm.
and class system, but it wasn't as expansive as feudal Europe.
And
The rest of feudal Europe, at
Mhm.
least, was.
I wonder if part of it comes from, the warlords being the chiefs of these villages could be overthrown by anyone in their village because they're just warlords.
Right.
It's all
Yeah, that's such a
about
good point.
show of strength and power.
Right.
If you have one unified king, you can never hope to obtain this sense of ultimate power over your domain because you know that there's somebody else that now has power over you. So maybe some of these minor clans,
No, that could have been like fighting, like infighting.
right? They don't
For
want to give up
leadership.
that infighting.
Because-
At least the reason behind the infighting. Maybe they still wanted that. Maybe they still wanted that ability to say, "Well, I'm gonna kill you and take your spot."
I could draw a connection there between like Klingons in Star Trek. Like they're
Okay.
very warring people.
Yeah.
It's like, if I want to be the leader, like I'll fight you for it. Like
Right.
I'll lead.
Yeah.
Kinda thing.
If I'm thinking of like fictitious groups of people, Dothraki from Game of Thrones. Very similar. They're
absolutely.
like horseback nomads that
Interesting.
value power, and
Yeah, still haven't seen the show.
they
so.
pretty much it's the same premise, and maybe well, actually no, there are a lot of examples of cultures, at least ancient cultures, that have valued war power.
Yeah.
I mean, look at China's history.
The Mongols.
Yeah, the Mongols is a big one. That's who I usually draw the connection from the Dothraki to the.
Yeah, that's
The
a good one
Mongols.
too. Yeah,
Because
that's actually
they're
probably
both
even
horse.
closer. Yeah.
Genghis Khan.
Yeah. Ronnie and I were watching a lot of videos on the Mongols. It's because they were kind of interesting. Again, kind of like Vikings had that brutal aspect to them where they would burn down a whole village if that's what it meant to become victorious. But they would also ride into a village and then conquer it and then make the people pay taxes, basically. Just kind of conquer them and be like, hey, pay us tribute, see you later.
And this is ours now.
Yeah, we're just moving on.
Yeah.
And religiously tolerant.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The few occasions where religious tolerance is, religion's a little muddy in general because...
Everyone wants their religion to be on top.
Well, and also describing national religions is shaky because there are pockets of ethnic groups that don't worship. Like, there are Christians in India right now. They're heavily persecuted. Same with Muslim Indians, especially close to the Pakistani border. Obviously, the whole
Muslims in China.
Palestine, that's
Yeah.
a shaky situation.
Wow.
I mean,
even look at America right after 9/11. Muslims were under
Oh my gosh.
such persecution.
There was so much stereotyping.
yeah.
It's like, oh geez, they have
And
dark skin.
it wasn't even
Oh, gosh.
Muslims. It was anybody that sort of resembled an Arab person.
Right, because everyone's like now just on edge, paranoid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can still see that today. I mean,
Yeah. No, for sure.
it's not like that
ridiculous.
shit goes away either.
Right.
No, it's horrible.
It just really ramps up in times of strife. Like right now, violence towards Asian Americans
Yo.
is
Oh
on
yeah,
an
right,
all-time
because
high.
of the
It's
whole like
it's up a lot.
COVID thing and
Yeah.
whoa, Wuhan and yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
Yep.
that's what people do. They defer to the lowest bar that they can find because it's easiest for them. But Vikings, I'm not really sure about the religious tolerance. But
They didn't really care. They raided monasteries simply because they were easy targets, not because they were or had hate towards
Right,
Christians.
that makes
They
sense.
It was
It's like
just an easy target
You're
with
not
a
gonna
lot
have
of
armed
loot.
guards outside of a
Right.
monastery.
And they
Right.
had a lot of loot. They had gold and
Church things.
yeah.
Let's take some of these pews, take them back for our church. Yeah. Oh, those windows are nice. We'll take those too.
My church had a very distinct smell growing up that I could probably, like, if I walked into that church, I'd be like, there it is. But it was, like, kind of the old wood of the pews mixed with just
Like, so, were they burning something maybe?
Yeah, well, yeah. Mhm.
Probably incense or
Frankincense
something.
all the
Frankincense,
time.
yeah.
Which is
Stuff
the
like that.
wildest. Did you know that used to be cannabis?
Wait,
They used
elaborate?
to burn cannabis.
Oh, that's right. I
Mhm.
forget where I heard. Where did I hear this from? They'd like walk down the like essentially the
When
aisles
they,
with
when
it,
they do it,
and they'd be doing like
they still do that, where
like
they burn
chanting and some other things.
incense down the aisles
Right.
in a lot of Christian churches.
But yeah, it
But
used to
now
be, like,
it's just
marijuana
incense. Back
because
then
of,
it was cannabis.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They
Hmm.
also some cultures with the I'm gonna forget the yarmulke.
Yeah, they get like for the Jewish culture, like the
Yeah.
yarmulke thing.
They would soak it in hemp oil and then put it on their heads and trip balls all day.
Wow. So it just like seeps into your skin and
Yeah.
you just get like crazy blasted.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. That sounds really
That's definitely
scary,
bringing you
actually.
closer to God.
Right? No, that was the thing. is
That's
that
probably what they
it
thought,
Gave
yeah.
them a sense of spiritualism.
Huh.
Yeah, I kind of had a revelation of sorts about cannabis when I was out in Colorado. There's a lot of negative like stigma around it, and it can certainly be misused. But if you use it with the intent to relax and enjoy an evening and like just kind of like open yourself to feelings and thoughts and that kind of sort of thing, it becomes a lot better of an experience.
Like,
and I think
not as a coping mechanism and more as like, let me free my mind.
yeah,
Right.
Like, and I think for a while I was kind of like using it just because I got used to using it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I like enjoy it now
Right.
a lot more.
What that makes me wonder about drug use with Vikings, which I guess there's like no record of.
I
honestly
mean,
didn't
you always
even
hear
think
the
about-
stories about berserkers.
I didn't even
I don't
think
really
about
know
looking it up.
about the validity of berserkers.
I don't know.
I mean, we could do that right now. That's the beauty of computers.
Oh hey, yeah. If anyone's got some Viking drug facts you want to shoot our way, time for anythingpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, always can send it our way. We love learning about things. So, I want to get past all the bullcrap search. Like when you
Take your
search,
time, you're fine.
are berserkers real? And you get like 12 badass facts about berserkers.
What?
The clickbait.
I'd sooner take the Wikipedia
Best
page.
build for the
Yeah.
berserker class in Borderlands.
When I think Berserker, I think Civ 6.
Oh, why?
Playing as Norway. Because the
Oh.
Berserkers are OP.
I see.
As long as you can get iron and starve everybody else of iron.
Yeah, but until people start rolling up with tanks,
That's so
I guess
many
it's
centuries
impossible
later.
if
It's-
you're rolling up with iron. I mean,
Well-
what? Yeah.
You don't need in the game you don't need iron for tanks, you need oil for tanks.
Oh,
Because they assume at that point you would have iron.
but like, do you?
Probably you can trade with whoever you want
Huh.
that has iron.
Interesting.
I had a good game where I was Norway and right below me was Rome.
That's really funny.
And they didn't have iron, so they couldn't pump out their legions, and I had so much iron that I was just pumping out berserkers like crazy. And I
So
actually
you just went into
sacked Rome.
and just sacked Rome with Vikings.
Yeah,
That's so sick.
so it was a good time. And then I lost the game ultimately, but
Well,
Yeah.
I just lost the
happens.
game too. Right now.
so Derek, while you search this up,
Yeah.
I guess apparently politics were sort of similar to, I don't know, I guess like maybe American politics, but like, I don't know. It's like funny how they name it here. Like, there was a local thing and then a local council, but like, why is thing capitalized in this piece of text that I'm reading?
Thing was so sort of like the all thing in Iceland. Thing is the name of the government,
Oh, wow. Okay.
from what I understand.
Interesting. Yeah, so I guess ultimately, I mean, like, it's just in the end, there was a king and a court in Norway, and you had like, so at least in Norway, eventually it was you have a king, and then that king rules over a court, and that king also then rules over everything else, which is later down the road, like, that's a lot different than what they were doing with just their simple clanship.
Well, and it doesn't emphasize hereditary passage so much. Like, you're not just becoming king or leader because you were born into that
Like
role.
clanship, you're saying?
Well, it is clanship in the sense, like,
Well, I guess
I
you're
think
referring to clanship.
clans can be multiple families. So it doesn't necessarily mean like one family is a clan, so to say.
I see your point.
But
Then in clanship, like then you can always potentially fight for being the head.
yeah, well, you can challenge authority.
So you could
basically.
break the stereotype.
Authority is based on power, and if your power is threatened, you could compare it sort of to the power, or was it the rule of two? In the Sith, or whatever it's called.
Sith, rule of two.
Where obviously you have what is it, Lord,
and an apprentice. Well, I guess you have an apprentice, but eventually they just also become a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't really know how it works. I don't really care.
But either way, there's like a leader and an apprentice. There's a master and there's an apprentice. And
right.
Once the apprentice becomes powerful enough, they can challenge the master, and if they win, then they become the master. So on and so forth. I mean, you see it in like animal behavior too.
Yeah, that's very true. Like alphas and stuff like that.
Yeah. You just see that in pack animals.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense. I could imagine Viking culture working very similarly, in the sense where you have like your strong males who are probably the ones who are mostly doing the seafaring and the trading and the raiding and all that stuff, and then you probably have like I was saying, like infighting, and then people get angry at each other and someone wants to be the alpha, and then next thing you know, like someone's dead. I don't know though.
Well, humans have been pretty good at manipulating the value that goes into a leader, so that it's not just power based anymore. Like right now, power is money.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like leadership typically comes behind financial capital. So
yeah, and
but
again,
it's
we don't
still the same structure.
We still don't even know about their culture enough. Like it could have been like, you're the one with the best like navigation when it comes to stars, and like that's the thing that makes you clan leader. Like what? I don't know. It could be something so simple and arbitrary. It might not even be brute force.
Did you guys talk about the thing yet?
Well, no, James was about to go off on this one.
The thing is actually the assembly.
The thing is a thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this thing is literally a thing.
Okay, elaborate.
It's called a thing. So when we refer to a thing, we're not...
Oh, yes, it's like it's thing, capital T.
Thing.
Capital T, thing.
So it's not just... We're not like referring to some random...
Yeah, so it says...
Yeah, you can also call it ding.
It says there was a local... Local... Wait, what? Go back to that.
You can also call it ding.
Ding?
Ding? Is that how it's pronounced more so?
Yeah. The reason it's called thing is because the way that it's spelled in Old Norse is there's a letter at the front that apparently is the TH sound, and then ing.
Oh, so it's just coincidence that it's thing.
Right. It literally have means the word thing. Assembly.
So it's instead of saying there was a local thing, which was a local council, you would say there was a local assembly, which was a local council.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how does this thing work?
I don't really know. Shetland... Apparently it was a Shetland-wide thing, and I don't really know where Shetland is.
No, I think that's just one...
That's one... Yeah, this is one specific one thing
the thing is still... it still exists in Iceland today, and a lot of our, like, I guess, reference modern day to Vikings is, Iceland was settled by Vikings.
Right.
So it's a good case study in terms of, like, seeing how that history progressed from when it was settled until now.
That's a very good point.
So it's kind of like a good way to peek into history that we don't really have a lot of options in terms of studying it. So the thing still exists. Basically, your village, your clan determines a representative for this thing, and people gather at regionalized things.
Yeah, and you still have like a king of that area.
Right. And then there's the all thing, which is an even larger gathering of maybe like a whole country or nation, or whole like Viking occupied territory, and that would be an even grander determination of things like land, apportionment, whose land is whose,
right?
deciding on maybe expeditions that they're going on, and just in general keeping relations between the clans.
I think an interesting fact is the Icelandic All thing, which is what we're talking about, this sort of a national parliament, is the oldest surviving parliament in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's where we I remember it being like us sitting in the living room kind of looking up the thing and like just like kind of skimming Wikipedia to like see, what we could find, and like there's a structure that still stands. Well, there's a whole building that stands from pretty long time ago.
Wow.
But the original all thing, I'm not sure if there's a structure for that in Iceland. But I would imagine Iceland's a really cool place to go in terms of like studying a very specific concentrated ethnic group.
Or even just
people
being in Iceland.
Yeah, my mom
That
went to
too.
Iceland. She highly recommended it.
Yeah, it
I
sounds
haven't
awesome.
gone yet, but maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Yeah, I'm excited for travel, honestly. I think it's going into the future. Right now, it's really cheap to travel, but you can't go out of the country.
2020 hindsight, we should have recorded this episode in the northern regions of the planet.
Travel to
Just to
Iceland.
really immerse ourselves
Should've
for
just
this
been
one,
like, alright, we're gonna
guys.
head to
Like, we wanted to
Norway.
make sure we had the absolute source of Viking knowledge.
We're wearing our
Interviews
hornless Viking
people.
helmets.
So yeah, we talked about clans and politics and all that stuff. What is a clan like? Like what's it like to be a family member in a Viking household?
Well, something that I thought was pretty interesting was that women actually had a right to inherit in their family. Land and mostly land could get passed down to them. Men still had a stronger claim. That's just kind of historically how things have been. But women still had a right to inherit, unlike other places in Europe.
And I can imagine a lot of the things lost from the husband probably went to if they had a son.
Yeah, so the eldest son would inherit everything.
Like, his armor, his sword,
Absolutely
whatever.
everything.
Yeah.
Land, everything. Which means if you had more than one child, the younger siblings would get nothing.
It's a big rip.
Bummer.
Which is what historians believe is another reason that led to the beginning of raiding in the 8th century, in the Viking Age. Because you had families of people, maybe you had 3 sons. When you die, your eldest son gets all your land, you're a successful sheep farmer, I don't know. Those other 2 sons that now have nothing still have to make a living. So they decide to group up with other people that don't have anything and just go raid.
It's crazy.
I mean, it turned out to be a fruitful endeavor, so good
Yeah,
for
it
them.
seems like marriage wasn't so bad either. Like you were at least allowed to divorce.
Yeah, you could divorce, and it was actually really common to get divorced. Although you would not want to be caught cheating, especially if you were a woman, because her husband would have full reign to just kill her.
Which is insane to me in America. But to them, it was like totally fine and normal.
And you see this in other places in the world, other cultures. The Middle
that's
East
actually
comes
true.
to mind.
Yeah.
And, it was also illegal for men to cheat on their wives, but...
But like, I'm sure the woman wasn't allowed to kill the husband.
Yeah, no, they were not. There was still
very
probably
silly.
some legal reprimand, but it was not nearly to the degree that it was for women.
I'm gonna like ask something here, and this might take us down a rabbit hole. I'm like, why is monogamy so not? Wow, why is monogamy so common between cultures? Like, why do so many cultures have?
I'd localize that to Europe, because you do have cultures that are, a man can have multiple wives. It has happened, but generally, especially in Europe, it's been monogamy. Even in cultures such as the Scandinavian culture and the Viking Age, that don't have religions like Christianity. Right? Christianity is a big reason that monogamy was so pronounced in Europe. Because
that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
That makes a lot
and also
of sense.
Judaism. So
Yeah.
but
yeah.
No, that actually makes a lot of because the widespread of either Christianity or Judaism or
Judaism wasn't that
monogamous
widespread
religions.
but
yeah.
So
religion, I guess, is really just the answer. Why is monogamy so common?
I guess for Europe, right?
Religion.
But not for the Vikings, because they didn't have Christianity.
Very true.
But they were still monogamous.
See, and what makes sense to me is a type of like serially monogamous society, not necessarily by choice. Like again, clearly you were allowed to divorce in this culture, so it was like, okay, if things aren't working out, just find a new partner, whatever. But I think more so, think about how many women, like their husbands were like, okay, I'm gonna go do a raid now, and then he doesn't come back. Like, what do you do? Like, you just gonna live alone for the rest of your life? Like, you'd probably try to find another husband and bear more children, right? And so you would do that, and then maybe the woman died of some disease, so the male has to find a new. It's like they're constantly at high risk because they're either raiding or being raided. So you probably just have tons of spouses who are losing their spouses, and then they have to get new ones. So I just imagine people would be like, all right, I'm gonna find someone here in this village that I can like okay, I'm a young girl, I need to find a man that I can, or like someone, you're 15 or whatever, you find another someone opposite sex, similar age.
Been a choice necessarily from.
Yeah, like maybe they weren't even allowed to pick. Yeah.
Marriage was generally a social contract, or a contract between families of similar status.
Yeah.
It was not about emotion. Love wasn't really a thing.
Right, I could imagine that there were a lot of arranged marriages.
Most of it was.
This clan has a, do-do-do, and this boy, and it's, okay, cool. It's, you're going to move to, like, a couple thousand miles that way, because there's a better person. I don't know, I'm just being ridiculous. But, like, the people probably had to move just because it's like, oh, well, your spouse is now on the other side of the mountain, because we found a tribe over there that needs a wife, so have fun living over there.
Yeah.
Away from your entire family now. It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the options that were presented at the time with the history.
So, yeah, I mean, like, based on what we
Right,
know.
like, it's easy for us to say because, well, you do have the option of, like, polygamy. I mean, well, maybe not. I think you can only get married once. Or not once, but like you can only be married to one person legally.
Yes.
In the United States.
Oh yeah.
So. It's not like an official legal marriage.
No.
If you have multiple spouses, but
adultery is not illegal either in the U.S. anymore. Think back in like the 1800s, it probably was, or maybe the 1700s.
Yeah, I'd like to know the answer to that.
I don't really know why things are that way. Just kind of, there could have been reasons. Like I think religion's a really good.
Yeah, I think religion's probably the most dominant reason.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's the only one. Just because this example of the Vikings, I mean, they were monogamous without a religion to tell them to be monogamous.
Or so we think.
Right. I mean,
but
as far as we know.
Well, I guess probably not, because you had people coming, like Christianity started to spread, and maybe they just didn't write reports that they had a religion. Well, I guess they kind of did, but I see what you're saying is like they didn't have a religion that was like, talking about monogamy.
Right. As far as we know.
Yeah.
Right.
But and what really was their belief system? Wasn't it like kind of different types of gods for different types of things, like you see in Greek and Roman culture?
Yeah, I think it was polytheistic with an emphasis on nature.
Yeah.
Sort of
like the water god or something like that.
Yeah. And it's kind of tough because all of the knowledge we have kind of dates back from after the Viking Age, and it's
Right.
also written by people who have been
We're not Vikings.
raided and conquered by Vikings.
Yeah.
So their perspective on
bias.
Vikings is pretty biased in a negative aspect. So they were described as pagans, described as barbarians, people without structure and culture, and it's just so far from the truth. And the sad part is when things are disregarded like that, then they're just kind of lost in history. But it seems that although polytheism was the starting religion, that eventually they were converted to Christianity
Correct.
as well.
Yeah, I guess, and Harold Bluetooth is responsible for that, which, interestingly enough...
In Denmark.
Coolest names in Denmark.
Right, okay, yes, sorry. Harold Bluetooth was responsible for Christianity in Denmark in 965. Yeah, that puts it a little bit in perspective how long ago this was.
Yeah.
What year is it? 965? That's obviously...
The craziest part to me is like, okay, the world's oldest bar. Oldest operating bar. So 965. Okay, operating. Typing silently.
Dead air. Listeners are like, what the hell is going on right now? Oh, sorry. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Did I already say this? Harold Bluetooth. He's who Bluetooth is named after.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And the B symbol for Bluetooth is based off of
I think it's his runic initials.
yeah, it's something weird like that.
Yeah.
Like,
That's pretty fucking cool.
yeah. Yeah, so the icon for Bluetooth is like grounded in history. It's not just, oh yeah, we came up with this B. It's so weird.
So Shawn's bar.
Shawn's bar.
Shawn's bar is the oldest.
It's in Ireland?
Yes. The walls of Shawn's bar have been around and serving since 900 AD.
Oh my god.
So this bar was operational during like the era of Vikings.
They probably saw some Vikings
Yeah.
when they were in. I guess they were in Ireland.
Dude, that's nuts.
It makes me feel a little closer to that sort of history, because you can go somewhere that's still operating, still open to the public, and you can get a pint there where Vikings also got their pints, which is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Couple other bars. The Bingley Arms, 953 AD.
Bingley Arms?
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Right.
It was probably a last name. Bingley.
But like 953, so Denmark's getting converted to Christianity 965.
So the bar was founded before they were even converted to Christianity. Yeah. At least wait, you said that, where's that bar located? Ireland. This is Denmark, though.
Well, in Denmark, Christianity was solidified in 1965, but the old faith was still there. It remained for a few hundred years side by side with Christianity.
Which is interesting.
Especially when you look at Christian texts and Christians say you can't believe in false idols, false gods.
And then here they are with polytheistic religion kind of side by side in a way. Yeah.
But you also see that in places like Rome that had Christianity but also still had their quote-unquote pagan beliefs. So, just interesting. But in Norway, Olaf, how do you say that?
Trygvasson. Sorry, I don't know.
That guy, Olaf,
ended up
revolting against Hakon Jar in 995. Hakon Jar was a pagan king. Olaf was Christian. And when he revolted, he started converting all of Norway to Christianity by force.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's how you always love it done.
Good old crusade in the north.
Yeah, just having stuff shoved down your throats. That's great. Christianity did then make its way into Sweden towards the end of the Viking Age, though.
Yeah, Sweden's interesting. It wasn't forcibly converted, nor was it established by a king like in Denmark, but it just kind of
Made
crept
its
its way in
yeah.
and
Yeah.
took hold.
Interesting. And I just think about kind of what we were saying earlier about how like they didn't have really a written language. I mean, they kind of had runes, which I can imagine is almost similar to hieroglyphics, but I'm imagining it's simpler, less expressive, maybe more for just symbols and like easy markings and things like that, rather than trying to like convey a message.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm not an expert on that, so I'm unsure. But yeah, I mean, I guess like the lack of literacy record before Christianity introduced Latin letters after the 11th century like makes sense because they just had a rune system, and we kind of said that earlier.
Yeah.
But
So they were settlers, they were raiders, and they also were traders. They really multifaceted group of people. I mean, they could be just settling, they could expand their territory if they wanted to, raid if they wanted to. They really just executed, which I think is what makes them so notorious, is that they really didn't care about any sort of established, niceties or anything like that. Like, they were just going to do what was best for them. And
Absolutely.
the thing is, though,
Yeah.
so there's the mention of them like raiding and trading and whatever, but what if there was a lot less raiding than we think, but there were just maybe a few that we now know about, so like now we just think that they did it all the time?
I think at first, at the beginning of the Viking Age, right around 8th century, they were raiding monasteries specifically because they were easy targets, coastal towns, whatever they could really get their hands on. But eventually, you knew a Viking raiding party when you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of them having to go in and kill people in the town would say,
sure they
okay,
just
let's just give them the loot and let them be on their way. And that's exactly what they did. They started extorting people.
Well, it makes sense because yeah, you see that thing roll up and you're like, okay, well, we either fight and all die, or we just give them what they ask.
Right, which is so weird to me how these monasteries just have all these riches and like things that are just seemingly so valuable to them for whatever reason it may be. They're probably trading them off.
Yeah,
for
like
other
anyway,
things.
what is there to really get from? Because okay, like let's say you get gold and whatever. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's useful.
Yeah, it's pretty useful.
But also, like, what if they're raiding? I don't understand the culture in the area of just the northern region in general. Like, what if you had different types of currency just like across?
Well,
you go a very short distance over the I don't know, lake or whatever the hell you want to call it, and then next thing you know, you got like different currencies.
So two things about that. First, it wasn't like gold coins like you would think. It was more of a barter system. It was physical items.
Oh, that's such a good point. I'm not even thinking about the fact that they were probably just not like they probably weren't even really using currency.
Yeah, there is no like stamped piece of gold that you can trade. But if they did have a stamped piece of gold, it's still gold.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You can still get a lot of things for that.
And also, their trade routes reached down to Italy and all over Europe.
Yeah, that's insane.
So if they take gold from England, it's still gold, and they go down to Italy and they can trade it for other things, spices and
wood,
incense, whatever they want, really.
Wood. Yeah.
Because they don't have enough of that
No.
in the Scandinavian
not at
countries.
Not at all. So one of the reasons why they were able to go down to Italy, they were able to go across the Atlantic Ocean at a time where people just weren't doing that.
Right, using advanced wooden water traversal vehicles, otherwise known as boats.
Thank you. Thank you for stringing along a 4-letter word.
What?
Boat.
Yeah, right, okay.
No, it's an advanced wooden water traversal vehicle.
Yeah, I know. I'm just being silly.
I know. It is silly. Yeah, they were just incredibly advanced at their time for sailing and navigation. They had some of the best ships around. They were waterproofed with animal guts.
Yeah. Okay. So
Just smearing that.
I read
Smell.
that, and that was insane to me. So based on what I looked up on that, it seemed like I wish I could like pull up a photograph, but like you got like a piece of wood, and then you almost sort of like you don't put them on top of each other in a way. Like you kind of like you clear an inch where they're like you would put a nail through, so they kind of like anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming what
Like an overlapping.
yes, there's like an overlap on it. So what they would do is they would like essentially just almost like you're laying bricks or something, like you squish the guts like on the edges like you're doing glue or something.
Yeah.
And then you like squish
Like
it together like caulk. Yeah, like there you go. Like caulk, and then you like nail it in so the guts like just create this nasty like mushy stuff that then hardens and like creates a waterproofing.
Probably didn't smell too great.
No, I was thinking that would just be atrocious. Like every time you're on that boat, it might smell like just death.
Sweaty men and animal guts.
Sweaty
Rotten
men, animal guts.
Up to
Salt.
200 men apparently in
slaughter.
some of these boats.
Yeah, their largest ships could carry 200 men.
Yeah, like that is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
200 people
It's a lot
Plus
of
all the
people.
loot that they have.
plus all the stuff.
Plus all the other stuff that they need
Yeah,
I
to
know.
survive
Gear
and
It's
all
insane.
Yeah.
that. So I guess the way the ships were designed, it was very versatile. You could carry the ship even across land into separate bodies of water.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What? I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. You could fit it in a river or sail it in the ocean,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy because you can't take like an oil tanker and put it in a river. Like it's just not going to
Even
work.
like a canoe, which is what I make a connection to thinking about their long ships.
They look very canoe-like.
They look similar. The
Yeah.
canoe, like you have specific canoes for rivers and specific canoes for the ocean. You can't use the same thing, but they were able to. I mean,
And it's because of that what is like I forget the actual name for the thing. Okay, so anyway, there's like the drafts. That's what it is. They had short drafts, so essentially it means that the how much the boat is underwater was relatively small. So that's why they could just like traverse it over land, take it into rivers, do all this stuff because the ship wasn't under so much water that it was easier for them to travel through
sort
shallower
of like
areas.
gliding on the top of the water.
Yeah, in a way, which is really neat.
Whereas a canoe, on the other hand, sinks further
Sinks
down
in.
into the water.
And then I think of European ships where the drafts were so high that you could go below deck, in which case you're practically underwater,
Yep.
which is so weird to me.
Yeah.
Which then makes a lot of sense why you can't take that down a river. But when you have a Viking ship with very low drafts, it's like you don't even really have to worry about hitting rocks and stuff because you're, like you said, just almost skimming the top the entire way, which is insane. And then okay, so speaking of Europe, it makes me think of like pirates, and technically Vikings were pirates.
Maybe pirates were thinking of Vikings.
I don't know, maybe.
Pirates definitely took some of the Vikings playbook for themselves.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah, maybe we could do an episode on pirates later. That'd be cool.
Interesting.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Pirates, though, were definitely more of the open sea. You know, you think of raiding ships rather than raiding coastal villages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there's different kinds of pirates too. It's not just the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
Sort of like English Spanish twist. Obviously they had pirates, but so did Asian countries as well.
Yeah.
Vikings were pirates. In a lot of
Vikings were
ways.
pirates, and pirates were essentially just like, well, I guess I can't even really use the term European, but like, yeah, English or Spanish Vikings. Like, it sounds so silly, but it's like Vikings and pirates are like the same thing. You know, like obviously not, because like pirates don't really have a culture like Vikings have a culture.
Right.
But like,
Well, it's hard to say because Vikings had a culture that was decentralized and spread out.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, like, Icelandic Vikings and Norwegian Vikings
Were probably
are
different. Yeah.
Versus, like, I'm pretty sure there was a Viking king of England. I'm pretty sure the Vikings eventually, like,
They definitely settled in England.
settled in England. So,
This is really weird to me, though. Supposedly, they had a general rule of like, don't kill, don't steal. A lot is related to property and respecting property.
Within Vikings, yeah.
But right, exactly. So I'm
Domestic
thinking it's
law.
like, yeah, domestic, not really like, because obviously they're still
'Cause
going
they're
to
like,
other
you can go
places
do
and
that
raiding
out
and
there.
Yeah, do it out there,
Not
not here.
in this house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, not under my roof.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is kind of standard if you
Yeah.
think about it. Like, they're not just a completely lawless
Right.
group of vagabonds.
It's that idea of the social
calculated,
contract.
yeah.
You're born into a society and you expect that society to protect you to a certain degree, which means that your neighbors aren't going to be stepping on your toes, killing and
Correct.
stealing you.
Right, because
Stealing
killing
you.
and stealing you,
Yeah,
which
maybe they'll
is the
steal
thing.
you,
Maybe
you
they'll
don't
steal
know.
you.
I'm being stolen.
Hell, that's not funny because that happens to people.
Does happen to people.
I am being stolen. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh about that.
Maybe we just
I
cut that one
apologize.
out.
Maybe. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, why Vikings? Like, why have we even sat down here and just essentially talked out of our butts about people that we don't even understand? Even the world doesn't really understand. Like,
Well, I think there's just a lot about Vikings that can be really intriguing, especially living in the world that we live in now. Just the idea of being disconnected from recorded history, disconnected from sort of mundane, stagnant cultural beliefs where you just like settle, die, settle, die. Like they were expansive. They weren't afraid to explore. They valued, true war power in leadership, and they thought that localized politics, communal politics were the way to go when it came to solving issues within their communities. So there's a lot of differences. There are some similarities, but there are obviously a lot of differences just in how we live life now.
right.
And it's sort of like this romantic aspect.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's mysterious, and like, oh, what about those guys?
Viking, so hard-nosed and
Yeah, it's
tough and
It's
like
been so
Cold.
overdone in Hollywood.
Yeah.
that too.
And especially now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there's a lot of Viking video games that are being released.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like Vikings are, making their way into mainstream video gaming. Just Valheim, big one that just came out. There's this other one, I'm not gonna remember it. Another Viking like survival game, Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Valhalla.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Assassin's Creed will do any,
Yeah, they've done
anything.
they've done everything.
Whatever you want.
Whatever they can do.
Yeah. I just think Vikings are pretty cool. I think there's not a lot that we truly know about them. They still influence us and our culture. Clearly. Like,
I was
we're
just
interested
thinking
in them.
about how, like I kind of mentioned earlier, Klingons from Star Trek, and also I can imagine just dwarves, as in like Lord of the Rings or any like fantasy or Deep Rock Galactic. Like I can imagine that dwarves and Klingons were probably largely based off of like northern cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the big braided beards that you'd see, and like, it's always about like, beer and warships and things like that. And I pull a lot. I think I can see a lot of like Norse inspiration when it comes to things like Klingons and dwarves and stuff like that.
It pops up time and time again.
Yeah, they're just super
You
fascinating.
just see like Norse mythology referenced or just things like that in general.
I mean, even Thor, right? From
Right.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Wars,
I didn't even think about that, yeah.
It's always just an aspect we're kind of infatuated with Vikings, so it'd be cool to, we thought it was cool, and so we did a Vikings episode, and this is it.
Yes.
Because we do cool stuff here.
I'd like
Sometimes it's historical, and maybe we're not, as juicy as other times, but...
Yeah, I'm not going to like tell
There's
you...
no hot take here on Vikings.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not like telling you how to be more emotionally intelligent. I'm telling you about something that I don't really know about either.
Right, but yeah, I don't think that ever deters us. I just think we talk about cool things that we're interested in, and
Right.
that's kind of the name of the game here at Time for Anything.
Right,
And,
exactly.
yeah. So,
Exactly.
thank you so much for joining us on this episode. harp on it all the time, but we're going to do it again. Timeforanything.com.
We have to, because it's too good for people to keep missing. Like, if you're not going to the episode page and listening to the bloopers, you're missing out on life because they're hilarious. And yes, that's all I have to say on
Phil
that.
gives himself a paper cut every time you choose not to go to timeforanything.com.
Yeah, I
At
just
this point,
put a piece of
he-
paper in between my toes and I just
Oh,
cut
what?
the webbing.
What?
You're just like paper cuts right there.
You really
Zoom.
thought about that one, huh?
Nah, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, I don't know.
It seemed like a very specific thing. to do. See, I'm not making this shit up. Phil's doing this. I
really
can't stop him.
I'm really not.
I just hear his screams.
He's actually cool with that.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Catch you later.